greetings and welcome to another Pokemon 2019 or Pokemon Journeys anime episode review. This time I'm talking about episode 133, so let's get to it. Episode 133 begins with Danika and Professor Amaranth giving Go, Gary, and Horace a briefing about Project MEW while aboard their flying research station. Danika says that they had to begin Project MEW sooner than they expected, due to the early arrival of the dry season they were waiting for. And she thanks Go, Gary, and Horace for answering their urgent summons. Danika then says that they are on their way to a place called Faraway Island, which is constantly surrounded by hurricanes and storm clouds that make it impossible to land on the island. However, once a year, the dry season gets rid of these natural obstacles, which is why this is their only chance to survey the island. Professor Amaranth says that a year ago, they detected strong psychic energy coming from the center of Table Mountain, which is located in the middle of the island. Believing that this psychic energy belongs to MEW, he set up Project MEW. Danika then says that they, meaning all the chasers, will land on Faraway Island. They will climb Table Mountain and they will search for MEW at its center. However, since Table Mountain is surrounded by turbulent wind currents, approaching it from the air isn't possible. So they will have to land some distance away and make their way to the mountain on foot. Quillon, who is piloting the flying research station, informs the others that they are about to land on the island, so they should brace themselves for turbulence. And sure enough, the entire station shakes as it makes its way through the tumultuous clouds surrounding the island. This finally allows them to see the island and to land on it. After they land, Professor Amaranth says that the chasers should report back to him should anything happen, and he prays for their success. With this, the chasers finally get to disembark the station in order to begin their search for MEW at long last. The first thing that catches their attention is that they are basically in a Pokemon paradise, since they see lively Pokemon all around them. After gawking at their surroundings, all the chasers head into the forest in order to make their way to Table Mountain. On the way, Danika tells Go to activate a sensor device. Go turns on the device, which looks like a Game Boy Advance. It is worth noting that Pokemon Emerald was released for the Game Boy Advance, and Pokemon Emerald is the only game that features Faraway Island. So the resemblance this device bears to the handheld console is likely intentional, especially since two parts of the device, one of them resembling a game cartridge, do light up with an emerald green light. Gary wonders if this device is the one that Go made and Professor Amaranth then upgraded. Go confirms that this is true, and that this device can pick up nearby psychic energy, which is then sent to the lab so that it can be compared to the energy wave form of Mewtwo, whom Go met in the past, aka episode 46 of Pokemon Journeys. I love that Ash and Go's encounter with Mewtwo is referenced in this episode, and that this encounter ended up helping Go with finding MEW. I do have to say, however, that I don't remember Go being the inventor type. I don't recall that he ever created a device like this. Though after 133 episodes, it's possible that I just forgot that Go has such a skill set. Professor Amaranth says via radio that MEW and Mewtwo should have matching energy waveforms. Danika then wonders if Go's device is working properly. Professor Amaranth confirms that it is, and he says that he will let them know if anything is detected. Horace says that it's amazing that something Go made is being used for Project MEW. Go says, while blushing, that this just happened to fall under his area of expertise, which again is something that I don't remember being the case. Go then wonders about Quillon and Danika's areas of expertise. Gary correctly infers that Quillon's field is mountain ranges, and that he researches the ecosystems of Pokemon living in harsh conditions. Without turning around to face Gary, Quillon confirms that this is true, and Danika adds that Quillon's favorite places are those where no human has ever been to, and that attempting the impossible is what he lives for. Go correctly infers that Danika's specialties are molecular biology and geology. Danika confirms that this is true and that she approaches the mysteries of Pokemon from these two perspectives. Gary then wonders if Quillon will try to catch Mew if they find it, but Quillon does not answer the question. Though judging by the way his Weavile looks at him, I think that Quillon is just too much of an edgy, prideful badass to admit his true feelings. Horace then wonders what Go would do if they found Mew. Go says that he cannot say for sure until the moment arrives, but he thinks that he would want to catch it. Considering what Go's role has been thus far, I think that it's odd that he hesitates and that he does not just say that he will catch Mew for sure. Horace then says that maybe, just like humans search for the Pokemon they want to catch, Pokemon also search for the right person to catch them, and that this would be great. Gary says that he cannot rule this idea out, even if he does think that Horace is a big romanticist. Horace is happy because his idea was accepted. Go says that if this idea is true, then perhaps Mew appeared in front of him because it wants to be captured by him. Gary says that he wonders if this is true. Clearly, Gary means to say that Go is getting ahead of himself, which is exactly what I thought. Now Go says this while looking up, which makes him miss the fact that his sensor device detects something, and sure enough, Mew is seen for a split second flying overhead. I do want to mention here that I wonder if this entire conversation is meant to hint at the fact that Go's fateful encounter with Mew was not so fateful after all. Instead, Mew wanted to encounter Go, because Go is the right trainer for it. So, the chasers soon reach a river, which they cross by walking on some huge vines. However, a Swampert soon appears and it attacks Go. Horace says that he has the perfect Pokemon to deal with Swampert, and he sends out said Pokemon. Now I thought here that he is sending out his Bayleaf. A Grass-type Pokemon is indeed the best Pokemon to face Swampert, who has a double weakness to grass. However, the fact that Horace is so cryptic about the Pokemon he is sending out, instead of just saying go Bayleaf, made me think that he has to be sending out something special, namely Meganium, meaning that his Bayleaf evolved. But while he does indeed send out a quadrupedal grass-type Pokemon, it's not Bayleaf or Meganium. Instead, he sends out freaking Virizion, who uses Magical Leaf to repel Swampert. Go is shocked and excited when he sees Virizion. Horace reveals that he caught Virizion during his last mission for Project MEW. Now back in episode 113, which is when Go and Gary completed their last mission, Go was given two missions to choose from. One was to catch Regieleki or Regidrago, which of course is what Go picked. And the other mission was to follow the 3 sacred footsteps. In my review of episode 113, I said that this Follow the 3 Sacred Footsteps mission is, or at this point was, to find the Swords of Justice, meaning Virizion, Covalion, and Terrakion, by following their footsteps, which is what you do in the Crown Tundra expansion. I also said in that review that Horace probably took on this mission, since he clearly did not choose to catch Regieleki or Regidrago. I also said that it's possible that during said mission, Horace captured one of the Swords of Justice, since Go and Gary both got to catch a legendary Pokemon for their final mission. Of course, Horace revealing that he has Virizion means that I was right with all 3 guesses / predictions, which makes this revelation less surprising and shocking than what it would have been otherwise, though I still did open my eyes wide in astonishment, since not only was I right on all counts, but also because legendary Pokemon really don't mean much anymore, since so many of them have been caught in this series. Also, I do want to point out 2 things here. First, Horace got Virizion instead of Cobalion or Terrakion because Horace wants to catch Grass and Psychic-type Pokemon only, and Virizion is a Grass-type Pokemon, while its brethren are not, nor are they Psychic-type. Second, Horace having Virizion means that all the chasers have at least 1 legendary Pokemon, which exemplifies what I said earlier about the current value of legendary Pokemon. So the chasers keep moving along and they soon reach Table Mountain. Go and Horace are in awe at the sight of such a grandiose and mystifying place, while Danika and the Quillon mention that fishermen have feared this mountain since ancient times, and that it's also a geologically important mountain since its topology has not changed for hundreds of millions of years, which is why it may have been the center, the core of the world since time immemorial. Go and Horace's amazement grows even more after hearing all of this. Go's sensor device then once again detects something, but this time Professor Amaranth calls via radio to inform the chasers that the device picked up psychic energy. However, when Danika wonders if the energy belongs to Mew, interference on the radio prevents her from getting an answer. The radio then cuts off entirely. They all then realize, much to their dismay, that none of their devices work. This includes their radios, their Groudon phones, their flashlights, Go's sensor device, and even their Pokeballs, which also means that they cannot recall the 3 Pokemon they have with them. They all then wonder what could be causing this, and they all arrive at the same conclusion: Mew, which is especially likely considering that their devices stopped working when the psychic energy was detected, though they were unable to confirm if it was really Mew. Still, something, which is likely to blame for the problem, is definitely nearby. Danika wonders if they should just head back to the station and reorganize. However, Quillon says that if Mew is really to blame for what is going on, then they cannot let this chance to find it get away. Therefore, they will use everything they have at their disposal, which includes the only 3 Pokemon they can use, to climb up Table Mountain. And so, they begin their ascension with Quillon and Weavile climbing up first, so that they can secure and drop a rope that the others can use to climb up. Here, Weavile reminds me of Sneasler from Legends Arceus. After tying the rope to a rock, Quillon lets the others know that they can begin their rise, which they do, with Gary going first, followed by Horace, then Go, and then Danika. while their ascension does prove to be taxing physically, to the point that Go even says that he is pathetic for always relying on his Pokemon, at least the climbing goes smoothly. That is, until a Skarmory appears out of nowhere and it cuts the rope with what I guess is Steel Wing. This almost cuts Gary's adventure short, though thankfully Quillon manages to catch Gary. However, the other three are now left without a rope that they can use to climb. And to make matters worse, they realize that there is more than one Skarmory to worry about. Go wonders what they should do, which gives Danika pause. But Grookey soon finds and points to a ledge that they can walk along. Danika decides that she, Go, and Horace will get to the center of Table Mountain via a different route, namely by following the ledge Grookey found. She informs Quillon of this while whispering to avoid attracting the attention of the Skarmory. Quillon replies while also whispering that he agrees with the change of plans, and he says that he and Gary will keep heading up. Quillon then tells Weavile to support Gary as they climb. Danika, Go, and Horace then walk along the ledge until they find a waterfall which halts their advance, since getting hit by the waterfall in this situation would be very bad. Danika wisely decides that they should turn back. However, before they do, Azumarill finds a cave behind the waterfall, which allows them to finally enter Table Mountain. Danika says that they should remain vigilant, since the path ahead might be dangerous. Go and Horace agree, and they all then make their way deeper into the cave. Meanwhile, Quillon and Gary continue making their way to the top. While Gary does stumble, Weavile stops him from falling, which is something Gary is thankful for. Gary is also forced to stop due to exhaustion, but he is motivated and determined to make it to the top when he sees Quillon, who is already at the summit, extending a helping hand. With Quillon's moral and direct support, Gary finally climbs all the way up, with Weavile arriving soon after. Now Quillon says good work here, but it's unclear whether this is meant for Gary or for Weavile or for both. While catching his breath, Gary admires the summit, but Quillon quickly reminds him that this is just their starting point, and that they should keep making their way towards the center of the mountain. Meanwhile, Azumarill finds a half-eaten cherry berry. Danika examines it and she determines that it has not been long since it was eaten. She then notices that there is a fine hair on it, which she believes could belong to Mew. So she safely stores the remains of the berry so that they can run a DNA analysis on the hair when they get back to the lab. Go and Horace both believe that it's possible that Mew is the one who ate this berry, meaning that it could be in this cave. Horace then wonders if Mew will appear before them. Go exclaims that it will, but Horace says that Mew does not appear when it senses the evil feelings of humans. Go says that they should not worry about this, since none of them have any evil feelings. Danika interjects, saying that if they do find Mew, then they should not let their guard down. She says that Professor Amaranth conducted research on various regions and he found many reports of Mew sightings, and that some reports say that Mew is as merciful as an angel, while other reports say that Mew is as cruel as a demon, and that one report even mentioned that a trainer that was searching for Mew was slammed into the ground and they had fire and cold launched at them. Go says that he refuses to believe this, likely because he thinks that there is no way that Mew would do something so evil. Horace says that the trainer in question must have done something awful. As they walk deeper into the cave and off-screen, Mew is seen following them. Now, like Go, I have trouble believing that Mew could ever be as cruel as a demon, since when I think of Mew, I think of the adorable and mischievous Mew from the first movie, and there is no way that this bundle of cuteness and joy could ever be a demon. The episode then cuts back to Quillon and Gary, who soon reach the center of the summit. While initially they do not find anything unusual, they soon find a crater that is cut so perfectly round that it appears to have been made by someone, who Quillon and Gary presume to be Mew. Using some nearby binds, Quillon decides that they should rappel into the crater to investigate. They soon reach a wide open cave that looks quite beautiful. Gary mentions that this is a strange space, especially since there are wild fossil Pokemon roaming about. Quillon says that this place is a closed space that has been entirely devoid of human contact and that has remained cut off from the outside for hundreds of millions of years. Gary exclaims that there could be Pokemon with unique biology in this cave, but Quillon says that Mew is the priority, and so they continue their search. However, said search bears no fruit. They cannot even find traces of Mew. They do, however, spot some binds that are covering a tunnel that leads further into the cave. Realizing that they can pass through the binds, they decide to investigate the tunnel. But before they can approach the tunnel, their path is blocked by a Kabutops and an Aerodactyl, who soon appear. Kabutops and Aerodactyl both attack. However, Weavile uses Night Slash to clash with both of them. Weavile then uses Dark Pulse to incapacitate both fossil Pokemon, thus allowing Quillon, Gary, and Weavile itself to run past them. I love that there is a delay before Aerodactyl falls next to Kabutops. Now, Quillon and Gary are not the only ones whose path is blocked by hostile Pokemon. Danika, Go, and Horace soon find themselves face to face with a Lunatone and a Solrock, who are clearly not friendly. Lunatone and the Solrock soon attack, but a Sumeril uses Light Screen to block their attacks. Seeing the imminent danger before them, Grookey decides to fight, so it leaps towards Lunatone and the Solrock. However, clearly, Grookey had no plan of attack in mind, since it soon finds itself in quite a bind when Lunatone and the Solrock attack once more. Thankfully, a Sumeril uses Hydro Pump to intercept the two attacks. The resulting explosion returns Grookey safely to Go and creates a smoke screen that allows all of them to run past Lunatone and the Solrock. As they run away, Go wonders if Grookey is alright, and Grookey exclaims that it is. However, Grookey then looks at its stick in disappointment. I think that Grookey is lamenting its lack of strength. It's lamenting the fact that it cannot help or be of better use, especially when compared to a Sumeril and Weavile. Since Go needs Grookey now more than ever, due to the fact that Go cannot use any other Pokemon, it's clear that Grookey wants to do its best to support Go. But it does not have the power to do so. At least, not yet. I think that this might be set up for a big Grookey moment in the next episode. The episode then cuts back to Quillon and Gary, who are walking through the tunnel from earlier. The tunnel soon begins to shake, which spells trouble. And sure enough, Quillon and Gary end up face to face with a huge obstacle. the legendary Pokemon and the master of the land, Groudon. The episode then cuts back to Danika, Go, and Horace, who soon find an underground lake. Horace soon spots a ledge that they can use to walk around the lake. As they make their way around the lake, they also end up face to face with a huge obstacle. The legendary Pokemon and the master of the seas, Kyogre. Now I have to say that I love the shot of Kyogre as it looks at the chasers from underwater. This reminds me of Jaws. So the episode ends with a shot of both groups of chasers together as they stare down the two gatekeepers that are now barring them from their objective. So overall, I think that this episode was good. It definitely felt slow, but this was necessitated by the theme of the episode, which is exploration and discovery. So while the episode did feel unexciting due to its lethargic pace, it was still able to keep me invested thanks to its themes, which ensured that I was in a constant state of wonder as I discovered, alongside the characters, just what mysteries are waiting to be uncovered in such an uncharted place. Faraway Island reminded me of Skull Island from the King Kong movies, which I love, since they are both islands that have been around since time immemorial. But due to the fact that they are located in the farthest reaches of the earth and that they are constantly surrounded by storms, mist, hurricanes, strong winds, they have managed to remain untouched by modern civilization, and thus they are home to some unique fauna and flora, most of which went extinct millions of years ago. Mystical locations such as these make for great settings for exploration-filled adventures, since they are both a joy and a thrill to survey, and this episode was able to capture this well. As for specific things about the episode that I liked, I enjoyed seeing all the chasers work together to traverse such a dangerous environment. I love that Go used his encounter with Mewtwo to build a device that can detect Mew. I loved seeing Quillon and his Weavile face Aerodactyl and Kabutops. I loved the lore surrounding Faraway Island in the anime, and the lore surrounding Table Mountain. I loved the sudden appearance of Groudon and Kyogre, who will surely make the next episode very exciting. And finally, I just loved the look and the feel of Faraway Island. Also, it was kind of surprising / shocking that Horace caught Virizion. Like I said earlier, I knew that his final mission involved the Swords of Justice, and I figured that maybe he caught one of them. But learning for sure that this did happen still astonished me. I guess that you can't be a chaser without a legendary Pokemon. So yes, overall this episode was great and an awesome start to Project Mew. But that's the video. As always, leave your own thoughts down in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did and would like to see more like it, then please consider subscribing to my channel. I love Pokemon and I love making videos on both the anime and the games. Also, please consider clicking the links on screen so that you can check out more videos like this right away. Thank you very much for watching, and let's meet again in the next video.